Welcome back, or welcome to the Rebel Tech Podcast, where we discuss the promises and perils of all things emerging technology. First, I owe you all an apology. We are a little behind schedule on shooting Rebel Tech, but that's because we're busy. We're in the foxhole. We're fighting. It is halfway through session, and we're going to talk about a lot of that today, what's been happening in some of the tech policy discussions here in Texas. I'm joined today with my co-host. We've seen him before on the show, Greyson G. Should I call you Greyson G today?
Well, you can call me whatever you'd like.
That's okay. Fine. Well, it's good to have you back, Greyson. And not that I'm, not enthused to have you, but I'm particularly excited to have an out-of-town friend, coalition partner, and I'd say, one of the fellow fighting in the trenches for all things good tech policy. Joel Thayer is with us today, the president of the Digital Progress Institute. Flew into Austin, and so my first question to you is, you've been here 2 days. How do you like Austin so far?
It's actually kind of awesome. I didn't realize that you guys were like the Bat City.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
As an avid Batman fan, would never want his life to be clear outside of billionaire.
Right.
But I did get to do a cool experience, which was, I guess I went under is it Congress Ave's Bridge?
Yep.
And was able to see the bats.
Yeah,
and it was straight out of straight out of like the Michael Keaton 1980 Batman movie. I was like, this is wild. So first cool thing. Second, you gave me a really good recommendation for brisket.
Oh, Terry Black's. You end up going.
It is incredible.
Unreal, right?
And I'm hopefully, if they ever need like a sponsor, or they want to sponsor someone, like, you can pay me just in meat. Yeah. It was that good. So so far it's been awesome.
So this will be a test for our listeners that are all Austin based. What was your order when you went to Terry Black's, if you remember?
So I got because I'm a fatty, I got 2 pounds of brisket.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And the sausage.
Okay.
And I used the sweet barbecue, and it's gone.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I would say meat's west, but I was meat drenched. Like, it's because
the humidity plus the meat, that'll do that.
But incredible food, man. Like, what a great place.
Yeah, well, so you've been on the Capitol, you've been on the Bat Tour, you've done Terry Black's, you just about checked all the major boxes.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you, Joel, and I know we'll kind of get into why you're here in Austin later into the discussion. I imagine a lot of folks who are in the tech policy space know you, but for some of our listeners that don't know what the Digital Progress Institute is, what your role is, maybe start with what you do and how you got into tech policy today.
Sure. So I started off, let's start with what the Digital Progress Institute is. So it's a think tank that focuses on bipartisan measures to advance policies in the tech and telecom space. And we have 5 basic principles, but in general, they are, we like to promote 5G. Mm-hmm. We definitely like to promote holistic strategies on internet regulation. We certainly try to promote robust competition. So big tech and antitrust is a focal point of ours. We have a privacy for all mandate as well. And the last bit is universal broadband, so making sure that everyone has access to it. And I think the reason I'm here today is because of the privacy for all and a little bit of the robust competition side of that mandate. And that really kind of gets me into how I got into this. Mm-hmm. So I started off as most people who got in tech policy as a Hill staffer. Mm-hmm. Without boring people on my long story past, I basically did not know what I wanted to do after college. Mm-hmm. I was a debater, so very much a college nerd. Yep. Who just liked it. I just like the ideas, like the idea of argument. I like the idea of being able to get complicated thoughts out there. And
did you do like IPDA debate, or what kind of debate were you doing?
I did British parliamentary.
Oh, okay,
cool. Yeah, so just. Everyone
a lot of this
and here's.
Yeah.
Well, but that ultimately forced me to think about, writing and arguing. Mm-hmm. And so part of my thesis was the issue of net neutrality. And so I wrote a whole piece on, can the internet even be regulated? What does it look like? And should we do it? And I will not tell people what I wrote because I have a very different opinion. I have a very different worldview than I do now, especially after seeing policy in action. Yeah. But anyway, that got me really interested in this area. I got an opportunity with the great Mary Bono, who is also the representative in my state or my congressional district. Got to work with her as a legislative correspondent and got introduced to this weird world called telecom and basically internet regulation. And so I was writing a bunch of letters on the issue. One of my LDs in her office, which is the legislative director, said you should go to law school. So on a whim, I took the LSAT, got into law school, and throughout law school just worked in various capacities. I worked for the Federal Communications Commission with the great Ajit Pai, really honed in my skills there. I was able to hop over to a sister agency of sorts called the Federal Trade Commission. And then after that, just took off and graduated law school, squeaked out a bar passage, and moved on as a tech and telecom attorney, which I've been doing since 2015. And so since then, have worked in law firms, worked as an advocate for small developers, and was in that advocacy was a bit disenchanted with the way a lot of the tech policy was framed up. And it felt like everyone wanted to make these issues very divisive, but in reality, it wasn't the case, or at least I didn't view it that way. The way I viewed the issues was more like a Venn diagram, where you have on one end the conservative view, on the other end you have more of the liberal view, and there's this healthy middle of that Venn diagram that basically allowed us to develop a lot of where DPI's policies came out of. And so I found that everyone was so fixated on these niche parochial issues, they weren't actually evaluating where we agreed. And so my take was that a lot of people actually agree with a lot of the conservatives and the conservative values that we all have. And one area of this, and this goes back to our core principles of privacy for all and robust competition, is also this underlying major issue for every single American, which is protecting kids. And so when we started to develop our policy strategy, especially with these very broad mandates or principles, protecting kids just seemed obvious. Like to me, it was the core function of the government to protect the most vulnerable. And better yet, there was a bipartisan chorus saying the same thing, getting tired of seeing all of what big tech has wreaked on all of our children. And so the question was, how do you do it? We were very supportive of a lot of different measures. The Kids Online Safety Act was one of our first forays into it. And we really pushed hard on, advancing that cause. We definitely were trying to write thought pieces and successfully wrote thought pieces. I should say they got published. And try to combat some of big tech's nonsense with respect to the First Amendment, which, call me crazy, but I just don't think James Madison, when he was sitting down and writing the First Amendment, thought, but what of the tech companies, or what of the porn companies?
Certainly.
These completely absurd notions of the First Amendment just were brought to the fore on these issues. And so part of what we thought our value was be able to use our legal expertise to frame the arguments in a way that made sense to the average person on the one end, basically to point out the hypocrisy of what big tech, who I wouldn't call any of these companies champions of free speech, were trying to do to essentially kill any meaningful legislation that would do so much to help kids and more importantly, parents be able to parent in the digital age. So that's my reticulated and almost Kafka-esque journey to this spot, but it's been a fun ride, man.
Yeah, and you the Venn diagram comment. on a lot of tech policy issues that we're working on together, it really is more of a circle. I mean, there's a lot of agreement, kind of the core values. We'll get into the hearing yesterday, but before we discuss one of the kid safety bills that we were engaging on, you have a Democrat introducing bills on smoke shops that are located within 50 feet of a school. And Republicans are like, yeah, that's bad. Democrats, yeah, that's bad. There's this general impulse and instinct toward protecting the general welfare of, in this case, Texans, nationally Americans. Net neutrality, of course, was an exception to that. I remember being in a media law class, and it was the third rail of all tech policy. If you're on this side, you're with Ajit Pai and you're bad, and now you're Trump bad man. But it was such a divisive issue when really there's core principles and tenets that should have united both sides. And so I think you're an important figure in why that shift has happened and why there is so much more consensus built. So let's use.
Can we just say net neutrality was a stupid issue?
Oh my goodness!
Let's just be frank about this. I don't want to turn the podcast into my rant on like ha 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 we were right.
Sure.
But in reality,
I thought the internet was dead. I mean,
yeah.
But the funny thing is,
Bernie Sanders reliably informed us that the internet would die.
Oh yeah, and
so.
or like what was it that you would have to pay for each tweet?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, the Chuck Schumer tweets where your Twitter is going to be like he tweeted out word by word saying, well, you're gonna have 55 tweets just to explain one coherent thought, which maybe for Chuck Schumer that's the case. But
yeah, well, it's okay. Well, I just had to throw that out there. And actually, hat tip to the great former chairman of the FCC, Ajit Pai, for really being a trailblazer on the issue, and also just being a champion of actual free speech to make sure, because really who benefited off of net neutrality? Really the tech companies. The tech companies were the ones who were ultimately pushing this. Yeah. And so just for his ability to see through that facade speaks volumes of his leadership at the FCC. And it's carrying forward with the current chair, Brendan Carr. I mean, guy's killing it. And can't say enough nice things about Brendan. Yeah. Or sorry, Chair Carr. Chairman Carr. Chairman Carr.
So if you guys are friends on a close basis. Well, let's have Greyson. How about you? Do you want to kind of tee up the hearing that happened? I guess as we're recording this, it was yesterday. When this goes live, probably a week or so ago. But there was a hearing yesterday in Senate State Affairs that brought Joel here. Walk us through what was the bill, what was the hearing, and then we'll kind of just go riff on that for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So yesterday, the Senate State Affairs Committee had a hearing on Senate Bill 2420, which was introduced by Senator Paxton, called the App Store Accountability Act. And essentially, in the vein of protecting kids online, this act requires that app stores age verify their users before they download any applications. It also provides accountability and a tool for parents to authorize downloads, approve or decline apps that their kids attempt to download. And so essentially, it's a fantastic piece of legislation which falls directly in our pursuit as a tech policy team here at TPPF to provide robust protections for kids while also empowering parents with the tools to do that. It was a great hearing. Joel and I both testified, and several other folks. There was a phenomenal, moving testimony from a victim of sexual abuse and trafficking who spoke directly to how these platforms facilitate the abuse which she had to endure and now has come out of and now acts as an advocate for those kids. But it was a great hearing, and there was a really interesting opportunity I had as I was called up to the panel to testify. It was me and another woman who were in support of the bill, and then there were a few tech lobbyists who came up and provided some remarks which I think it's safe to say were not satisfactory to the Chairman Hughes, and they were put in their place. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So let's get into that. You were on the first panel where the victim spoke. So it was you, John Reed, and this moving, tragic story. Just I guess high level too, from your perspective, App Store Accountability Act. What's your advocacy like, and then walk us through the hearing from your POV.
Yeah. So I think it was outlined very well. So I won't rehash it. But in general, the underlying legal theory here is on on the conduct of these companies and specifically contracting. It stands for a principle that I think every person should agree with, and that is that trillion-dollar companies should not be engaging in contractual and sophisticated relationships with children. And when you look at it from that vantage point, you realize how absurd all like the tech lobbyists were in arguing that it's the case that no, we absolutely need folks at Apple and Google to be able to facilitate these arrangements. And especially when you consider what is on the other side of that platform, which is a whole host of addictive products and dangerous products that can directly impact kids. And we did hear that at the hearing. And one thing that I think was very clear from the testimony of the victim was that the portrayal of these apps as like these innocuous, very easy to use, and sometimes called child safety, thought to be safe for children, just turn out to not be the case. And in fact, you read just the basic descriptions of them, and you wonder how in the heck did Apple allow an app that I think one was literally called like it was called like
Exposed.
So
can I take a liberty for a second here, because I downloaded this app. So this was Senator Paxton was asking one of the witnesses, "Hey, there's this app we were talking about. Can you explain it?" It's I have it here. It's Exposed 2. So it's I don't know if our viewers can see this, but I pull up the app and it's this cute little unicorn, clearly appealing to child psychologists or engineering these apps to be addictive, enticing, and all that. And basically what it is it's truth or dare, which already, okay, do you want to, it's rated safe for 12 plus. Is that safe for 12 plus? No. But then you look in, so if I go to create a game here, it's not just truth or dare. You have gossip wheel, which, okay, spill the tea, I guess. But then it gets more and more lascivious. You have saucy mode, canceled mode. So how can you cancel your friends with questions? Cheeky mode. And wait for it, a purity test. So 12-year-olds should apparently be engaging in games where they can figure out, have they done different drugs? What kind of sexual acts have they engaged in? And this is, to your point, marketed toward kids and by design, intending to addict them to these apps at a young age, and to hide behind the veneer of, oh, well, we just didn't know. So maybe that's a question I'll ask you. Do they know, Joel? Do these app stores know what's on their platform and what kids are being exposed to?
Well, I don't know how they can't. So Apple and Google have been under a lot of scrutiny on the level of control they have over their devices and over their app stores in particular. I mean, look at just, we don't have to go very far to uncover how much control they have. I mean, the DOJ, both under the Trump and Biden administration, and now Trump too, are putting them under legal scrutiny for for exerting that control and engaging in monopolistic behavior. And so the fact that they sit around and pretend or play like Babe in the Woods when it comes to these issues, it just speaks to the hypocrisy of these apps. I mean, of these app store providers. I mean, so they go out of their way to completely monopolize or at best duopolize the mobile ecosystem, and they want to have no accountability at all. They don't want any responsibility in any of that monopolization. They are the ones that concentrated the market, and they are the ones that are the primary distributors of all of these applications. And if someone doesn't know that some of these apps, like social media company, like the ones social media present, or the harms that social media presents, or even the harms that you see on those basic apps, they have had reports left and right, and there's even been congressional hearings. Nothing has happened. And so on one end, it's you can make the case that, oh, well, is this just a willful ignorance? I think that's impossible, just given the amount of media that's been dedicated to this. And look, on the other end, the question is, do they not care? And I think it's the latter. And even if you look at the reports, like, they don't care anymore. Like Apple and Google, so Apple in particular, who claims that privacy is a fundamental right, will use that as a guard to prevent any sort of intrusion on their monopolistic behavior over their control over their app stores on the one end, and on the other end, don't want to help the parents do anything. I mean, they even came out with like faux parental controls, which the Wall Street Journal basically came out and said they're complete nonsense. And they even have strategic bugs in there. And it's unclear whether like those bugs were placed in.
It's a feature, not a bug, though, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Like I didn't realize introducing kids to predators were
the feature.
It was just part of all the fun that Apple provides.
Right.
But but then there was another article that came out. So Aaron Tilley, who is a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, uncovered that these app ratings too are geared towards getting more kids onto these platforms, and that Apple not only promotes these apps, but don't seem to care that these labelings are doing anything helpful in terms of providing parents the necessary context of all these apps. So again, I can't imagine that they don't know, given their monopolistic control, given all the media that's been surrounding all of this, and also that they have been called out directly. I don't think it's a willful ignorance. I think it's just straight up, as Senator Paxton rightfully said, it, sociopathic.
That's right. Yeah.
And I appreciated her comment when she was talking about how kids are like one of the only few markets who have completely discretionary income. And so the motivation of these companies and these apps is to have as many barriers removed from allowing them to purchase and download. It's like an untapped resource for it's a tapped resource certainly, but the fiscal incentive that they have.
Yeah, I think Senator Paxton said it perfectly, and like I'll take it one step further. She said sociopathic is one thing, but it's not just willful ignorance. It's a sociopathic indifference. They do not care. And they don't care so much that they are willing to even put out a white paper. Apple will put out a white paper saying, look, hey, mea culpa, guys. Yeah, we actually can do this. And we were able to do it the whole time, but we just didn't do it because of whatever I don't even think they gave you a reason. But I think this. I don't think that they are actually interested in protecting kids. I think that what they really want to do is put out these fake or these parental controls that we all know are not really parental controls, or the parental controls in name only, so they can avoid governments doing what the government needs to do, and that is protect the population. So they will say whatever they have to avoid any form of legal scrutiny and any form of regulatory oversight, and it's come high time for them to, like pony up in terms of accountability. Like you have pitched everyone as being the safe tech company, and you have demonstrated that you are the opposite, and in fact may even be the distributor to some of the most just frankly disgusting and opportunistic and frankly, even more frankly, dangerous and deadly apps to kids. And you don't see, and so I can't remember who said this during a Senate hearing in the U.S. Congress, but I think it was Senator Lindsey Graham, saying that that he was remarking to Mark Zuckerberg that he has blood on his hands, which is true.
Yep, it does.
So does Apple, and so does Google. They have blood on their hands, and so it's only right for legislators to be upset and do something about it. And that's why what Senator Paxton and the good folks at the House of Representatives are pushing forward a bill that is meaningful, thoughtful, and will get the job done.
That's right. And I mean, to the point of blood on their hands, we've seen at this point report after report after report, internal investigations and internal research that different social media companies are doing, where they not only know, okay, there's a direct correlation between eating disorders and anxiety, especially in young girls, and in association with using these apps, but we're going to see that data, extrapolate it, and find ways, how can we hook them even younger? I mean, it is sociopathic. There's no other proper term for that. And to the point of, we actually just got this hot off the press. We got some polling on the App Store Accountability Act. Before I get into this, we did polling about a year and a half ago at TPPF, and two of the findings off the top of my head is 80% of parents believe big tech isn't doing enough to empower them to protect their kids, and then 90% want more tools to have control over their kids' social media use. We asked the direct question, Do you support or oppose requiring app stores to obtain parental approval for teens to download apps? 75% support. And this isn't a tailored, targeted audience to try and maximize. This is a split that is representative of the voting electorate in Texas. And I imagine after these hearings and after these revelations that are happening in Texas right now as we speak, that number is only going to grow and increase. And any decreases and any opposition is either an opportunity to provide more education and awareness, or it's big tech, because we heard them yesterday come and oppose these bills. So I'll leave it at that. Any final comments on the hearing or closing thoughts there?
The only thing I will say is that what was clear from all the reactions that you got from the senators is that it's not just the legislators that are tired of hearing from these tech lobbies saying, don't worry, we'll fix this. I also got a sense that parents are tired.
Yeah.
They're tired of it. Every time they're tired of being undermined by these tech companies.
Yeah.
They're tired of watching their kids devolve.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why you're seeing all of these tech lobbies arguments just fall flat. I mean, the fact that even like the appeal to the First Amendment, I mean, if you break it down to its essence, they are tech companies, these multi-trillion-dollar companies are essentially saying that a amendment and a doctrine and a protection that was meant to be a bulwark for us and our rights is really just a sword for big tech to use to cut down any form of meaningful legislation or product to rein them in. And worse, they think it's a sword to cut down those same legislations that help kids.
Yeah.
And that is just disgusting.
Yeah. No, I couldn't have said it better. Well, I guess maybe a less emotional but still really important issue I want to bring up with you. And this kind of speaks to the reputation you have preceding you. Yesterday, we were meeting with a close ally in the Texas House, and he's like, "Hey, I met Joel Thayer, and he's my guy on Right to Repair." I'm like, "I thought we were your guys." and sure enough, I'm talking to him like, "Yeah, you've been a stalwart and fighting for Right to Repair for a number of years." Yeah, talk about that. How'd you get into that issue, and kind of where do you see the landscape on Right to Repair law?
I think it goes back to just those areas where we agree, that Venn diagram that I referenced. And I think fundamentally, when you and I purchase something like a smartphone or anything else, and we're told, and we spend a lot of money on that smartphone, the fact that we can't do anything when we walk, like anything lawful, when we walk out of the vendor, is ridiculous. It runs afoul of the basic concept of property rights. I mean, what did I purchase really? So for smartphones in particular, the fact that if I change, let's say I mean, look, we've all dropped our phones at some point.
I've got a cracked screen right now.
Yeah. But if you go, but you would have to go, like what Apple would require, assuming it is an Apple device, you would have to go to the Apple store just to get it fixed. And look, they may be charging you a fair price, they may not, but it should be up to me to decide what a fair price is. And why do I have to go and make a reservation with a so-called genius to replace glass on a phone when I can go down the street and easily do that without having fear that my warranty is going to be expired or it exceeds the warranty, and that now my Apple Care that I pay for is no longer going to be valid. Like that to me just cuts at the core of how ridiculous and absurd we've allowed these tech this to the tech industry to become that, like, we're so dumb that we don't even know how to change glass on a phone. I mean, to me, it's just so offensive. And also it's so anti-consumer. I mean, so part of it was just that. And then so so at a fundamental level, it was this so common sense. I can't see why a Democrat would disagree. And it turns out I was right. I mean, a lot when you actually ask folks about, specific things about Right to Repair, it makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously it gets a little bit more complicated the more you augment the scope. And there are different issues where, okay, maybe it would take some expertise in order to fully, fully take something in or out of a device, like particularly like maybe like a tractor, maybe requires a little bit more expertise. I mean, but
certain safety concerns, like
Yeah.
certain equipment.
Absolutely. But when it comes to like basic stuff like a phone or like just everyday products that, you engage with and we've used for years on end, I think it's a little strange that, we don't have the right as consumers to be able to choose the vendors we want at the price we want. And that was really it. A friend of mine was talking to me about it, and he said there was a bill on the federal side. I don't know if anything came about, but when I read it, I was like, this is so common sense and nonsensical. I don't know why it'd be such an issue. Then you find out all the tech companies are saying, "Oh no, don't do it." It affects it actually is anti-consumer and for all these dumb reasons. And it was never really clear to me, but I just decided to be a little bit more of like, I just looked at this in a broader landscape. I don't think that the right to repair issue is an issue that exists on an island. I think it's emblematic of how much tech wants to control your life. And they don't just want to control your life not only in the device itself, but outside, where you can go, how you can use it. And last time I checked, our relationship ended the moment I exchanged dollars and cents and received the device. But for you to try to tack on some weird licensing regime where now you have full control over everything, that's a little too clever by half. And also just, again, I keep using this word, but antithetical to our basic fundamental Lockean views of property rights.
Right.
I mean, at some point, Apple and Google and all the other tech companies feel like a really overprotective parent, and sometimes you just got like where like they just like their phone is their baby. Well, now the baby's gone. It's out of the cradle. It's ours now.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. And let consumers pick what's right for them. Stop thinking that you know better than everyone else. That's that liberal elitism that you can only get in Silicon Valley.
Right.
My favorite aspect of this issue, as we did our research on the right to repair, is because it speaks to a deeper problem culturally that we have. That when I was a kid, like I thoroughly enjoyed, much to the frustration of my parents, I loved taking apart the toys that they bought me.
Yeah.
Totally destroying them and then attempting to try to put them back together. Like I still remember the Buzz Lightyear like robot that I had that like would not work. Like immediately as soon as I took it apart. But it's the notion of tinkering, of messing, using your hands to do things and expanding. It's like the aspect of research and learning that I was able to enjoy as a kid just by messing around with stuff has been taken away to a certain extent because of the repair restrictions that are placed on us by these manufacturers. You spoke directly and clearly to the legality of this question as it relates to the tension between property rights and intellectual property. But in my favorite aspect of our discussion and our research about this issue is the sort of the cultural notions that we've lost because of these repair restrictions.
It's such an important point too, because like the whole purpose of intellectual property is to encourage innovation, right? That's the idea behind giving us these government licenses, for lack of a better term, and. The tinkering that you're talking about, there are a whole host of inventors that started off that way. They were just interested in, tinkering, as you put it, and putting things back together. And you find all of these innovative tools. I mean, I think that's been like the impetus of even some companies, or the start of some companies. Yeah. And so,
like Steve Jobs in his garage.
So Apple of all companies should understand this sentiment.
That's exactly right. Like, or I think it's Wozniak. Like, this
who is a noted repair advocate.
And so
maybe that's why Apple hates it, because Jobs and Woz, and it all stems from there.
Well, really, I think that Wozniak was far more of an egalitarian than I don't think I'm telling tales out of school when I say that Apple ran their ship. It was like Apple was basically run under the thumb an exclusive thumb of Steve Jobs.
Right.
And it's this top-down approach that, I don't think Wozniak really gelled with. But again, going back to the point of the purpose of the intellectual, like this goes back to the hypocrisy of big tech, where they're taking something actually quite beautiful that we have, which is the right to have intellectual property, and which was really there to advance and encourage the arts and also scientific thought, and to mean, oh no, we are only entitled to you're only able to avail yourself to the art and science that we give you. I think is just such a level of hubris that I don't even think they get how crazy it sounds. To them, this is just, it's obvious that you should just treat us as your tech overlords and just accept that you're you're among our servants. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the drive and why you're getting, there's a lot of political will to do this, because again, much like parents are tired of being told by tech companies that we're here to help and trust us with your kids, just as that's failing, you're also having folks saying, we don't need you to innovate everything. A part of the innovation is allowing us to, a part of the innovation that you provide us is allowing us to innovate on top of it, or at the very least, create our own innovation. And it sounds like they're not interested in having that conversation, and they're more interested in just tightening the screws when they should, in all reality, let it go.
Yeah. No, well said. And we hear a lot about the walled garden. It's becoming more and more of like a walled prison, like literally shackled, enslaved.
Is anybody, I hope your listeners are paying attention to this. It's all coming back to Apple.
Yeah, I know. It's supposed to be the Beat Up on Apple podcast. This is consumer protection.
I like my laptop. I like my MacBook. I like my iPhone.
But anyway. In reality, everyone, don't you think the DOJ has a strong case on the antitrust side? Like, again, all of these like policy stuff, and it's true for Google too. I mean, like there are two choke points of all the internet, and it's Google and Apple. And so I think that this is exactly why you're seeing all these drives with respect to their accountability on app stores, and also right to repair, and a whole host of other issues. And really, I think at the end of the day, it's very American to fight back on concentrated authority. And I think that's why antitrust is such an important vessel and tool, because it comes down to our core principles, which is we don't want to be run by a king, but we don't want a king of commerce either. We want to be able to decide and have decide what we want and what we like without an oligarch coming in and telling us, this is the right, you are able to choose A and B, but no other. That is just not how America has done this. And I think big tech is learning that firsthand.
So instead of throwing tea, I'm gonna appeal to your monarchical leanings. Instead of throwing tea into the Boston Harbor, we are to throw our Apple iPhones into the sea in hopes that we can one day bring it to Bob's repair shop instead of the Apple genius to repair it for us.
And also let up on their Apple tax too. It is a tax issue at the end of the day.
That's true.
They do charge 30%.
We're starting a revolution here.
That's fair. I used to be willing to pay it, but I don't know, not so much anymore.
Well, you gave reference to I caught up on the digital choke point. I know that's a Chairman Brendan Carr line. Talk to us, Joel, about FCC, FTC. We spend a lot of time here focused on Texas and how our Attorney General and others are kind of enforcing all these consumer protection laws. You've got a great window in what's happening nationally with Trump in the White House, Chairman Carr, Chairman Ferguson. Where do you see them headed as it relates to the next 2 to 4 years of the tech policy landscape?
I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe for a lot of these big tech companies. I know they feel like there's been a lot of press that seem to misrepresent exactly where a lot of these Trump policies are going. But just I would say look at his picks, right? You have at the Federal Communications Commission, you have Brendan Carr, who has been no friend to big tech, and really evaluating how best to pull the levers to rein in big tech in a way that increases free speech for the American consumer. It's a consumer-focused prism and analyses that, is not just commendable, but again goes back to the mandate that the U.S. population put on the president, who seems to be taking this very seriously. Then at the DOJ Antitrust Division, you have Gail Slater, who again, her whole, I mean, when you just look at what the president said about Gail, she is there to enforce the laws, to ensure that the smaller innovators have a seat at the table. This is, I think that this is a part and parcel what the Trump administration seeks to bring. At the FTC, same thing. Chairman Ferguson going out there and fighting, and again, it's all under these general American principles that you didn't see from the Biden administration. I mean, yes, we did have strong antitrust enforcement, and Biden should be commended on that. But what he did was he carried over what the first Trump administration was doing. The Google search case started under the Trump administration, carried through to the Biden administration, and now is going to be finished with Gail Slater. And they just put out their own joint motion on, or their joint proposal. A joint proposal. They put on their own proposal on the remedies for that case, which we're going to hear. I think litigation is happening later this month, and it didn't look like they were letting up. And then you look at the FTC. No cases have been pulled. Despite every speculator, oh, look at all these big tech people that were sitting behind Trump. Oh, they're the ones really pulling the strings. Name one case that has been pulled. None. They could have done that for day one. Easily. Didn't do it. So on the side of the FCC, look at what look at what Chairman Carr is actually doing. What he's doing is he's funneling a lot of these pro-American and pro-consumer ideas and turning them into legit policy that ensures that American consumers have the ability to hear what they want, say what they want, and all of it outside the purview of a big tech oligarch. To me, like, this is, I really do believe that President Trump moved the Overton window on this entire issue. I always felt a little out of step with the traditional Republican Party. And mainly because I did believe that, I mean, they had this, neo-libertarian or tech optimist approach to things that I just never fully got behind. I never fully understood why we love these companies so much and why we treat them as champions, when in all reality they do everything they've demonstrated that they hate all American values, and they've demonstrated that. And the proof is in the pudding with a lot of these folks. And so before it was, defend them as champions. But President Trump challenged that notion and said, you know what? The value of the free market is to encourage human flourishing. It's not an end of itself. And I think that created a real revolution amongst the conservative movement, and it did it in a positive way. And it got us back to our priors. And it got us back to at least being able to go to the other side of the aisle. I mean, everyone calls Trump this very divisive person, but if you look at his policies opened the door and were even endorsed by Democrats. So I really do think he has done, especially in this area, the yeoman's work in bridging that political divide. And so I don't see that ending. I think at the end of the day, yes, people. I'm sure that a lot of my Democratic friends have a hard time, mustering up support for some of the stuff that the president has done, but they can't deny that a lot of it, in their deepest heart of hearts, is a good thing. And even if you look at the government waste issue, I mean, that's a very bipartisan issue. I mean, that goes all the way back to President Carter. President Carter deregulated the airlines, for God's sake, because they thought that this was just an inefficient way of regulating a market. The Obama administration used OIRA to, create facilities to get rid of bad regs. And now, this harkens back to what the FCC is doing. FCC is doing that same proceeding right now, following that tried and true position, the American tradition of ensuring efficiency. And again, that is not antithetical to a good American policy. That is actually in furtherance of good American policy. That's how we were able to do it. So what I really do appreciate about this administration, how they've approached it, is that it's really bearing down on those principles of and the American principles that we all care about, which is freedom and individual choice.
That's right.
And so I see all of those policies in that prism, and I'm very pleased at what I'm seeing at the FTC, at the FCC, and at the DOJ. I mean, he picked the right team.
Yeah, he did. And your comments just bring me back to Senator Paxton's comments on corporate sociopaths. And if I'm not mistaken, sociopathy is, you see people as a means to an end to accomplish your goal. In this case, for Google, Apple, it's the pecuniary gain. I'll bring this to Chairman Carr and Ferguson and others. I was talking to Greyson and a couple other colleagues yesterday about, back in the day when Google had that sign that was their rally cry, "Do no evil," and then they got rid of that. And now we're learning.
Because evil's beneficial.
Because evil's beneficial has been the official policy. And I think we've mentioned this in the show before, but in, Elon's, the Walter Isaacson bio, it talks about that interaction with executives at Google and Elon, where Elon gets accused of being specious because he believes humanity is good for the overall flourishing of our country. And executives at Google have said explicitly, humanity is a threat to innovation. We are roadblocks, and they will, get their souped up, probably zero emission vehicle Jeep to run us over if that means they can get through. And then Apple, I was trying to think in my head, I'm like, what's the example I want to use here? And I think my favorite one that personifies what you said, which is hypocrisy, is when I have to call him Tim Apple. Tim Apple, Gervais is giving that speech, that epic speech at, was it the Grammys or Oscars, where he was just ripping into the audience, never to be invited again. He was like, Apple, it's so great that you guys are these pro-humanitarian champions where you're just fighting in the trenches, putting out this content that's virtue signaling. And oh, wait, that's right. My battery comes from products that are mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo using slave labor, where people are dying every single day to produce the phone so you can virtue signal and, pat yourself on the back. This is about Chairman Carr and Chairman Ferguson fighting for American values above all else, because those tech companies are not reflective of that mandate that President Trump was set in to defend and protect. So, I mean, we're fully in agreement with you, and I'm genuinely looking forward to the next couple of years of what they're going to bring, because it's like one of the first episodes we did in the podcast when Trump got in was, we're back. Yeah. It's time to build. And when these companies are an obstacle to that building because we're not pushing for businesses that are pro-humanity and pro the values that we believe the free market can champion and emblazon, it's time to correct that course.
100%. And look, also the fact, so you said this very well, but it's the challenging of notions. Even if you look at the tariffs, the idea that we should be thanking all of these different countries for imposing these absurd tariffs on American goods, while at the same time moving all the workforce off of our shores, is categorically insane.
Yeah,
it's the most, and the fact that the corporates are in the background saying that no, you shouldn't do that because we have a special interest in these countries. And I know this isn't the Beat Up on Apple's podcast, but they're going back to their hypocrisy. I mean, what Apple just recently, Tim Apple said this outright, that the most important country for him and his supply chain isn't the United States, isn't even an ally of the United States. It's a foreign adversary called China.
Yeah.
So much so, and I think what Ricky Gervais was also talking about is that they build their iPhones in an area that is basically riddled with human rights violations, specifically with religious minorities, the Uyghurs. And not only that, they when the CCP Select Committee on the House side pushed for more rights or more restrictions on those areas to defend the religious minorities in China, so that way corporations couldn't avail themselves to slave labor. Guess who was in the front lines fighting that? Apple. So spare me. And I think that's what you're. And again, going back, I really want to highlight that point you raised. That's why this administration is so important. the laws only matter if it is there to advance American principles and also the American people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the laws are here to do. They're here to protect us. So why are companies trying to leverage our First Amendment, overall constitutional protections, and our laws to only be read so that they can avail themselves to those protections? Those are rights, those laws and rights are there for us, not them. And I think that's the staple of the Trump administration and Trump America.
Yeah. Well, I could not say it any better. I know we're coming to a close here, so I'll give you a chance. You got the microphone. You can shout out your socials. Where can folks find you? What are some things you're working on? I'll let you finish with closing thoughts.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, everywhere you can imagine. Yeah. So yeah.
And I can confirm, because when I was looking you up when we were first meeting, I was like, all right, FedSoc, Digital Progress Institute, you're everywhere.
Yeah, I just unfortunately I share the same attribute as manure. I'm all over the place. So yeah, but
you smell good though.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I didn't say all attributes.
Okay, yeah.
But
Can confirm.
Yeah.
Sitting right next to him.
But yeah, like it really, the good work at the Digital Progress Institute, really check it out. Digitalprogress.tech. I mean, look at what we're doing. We usually update everyone on, the new, the latest and greatest. For better or worse, I'm a prolific writer, and I'm all over the place. So, but yeah, it wouldn't be hard to find me. So yeah.
Cool.
Put me in a DuckDuckGo search. Don't put me in a Google search.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Joel, thank you for joining the show. Thank you for being here in Austin. Thanks for all your hard work. And here's to many years of partnership on fighting for humanity and human flourishing.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me.